Bonjour. I actually always start the podcast by saying bonjour, and usually my guest is not French, doesn't speak French. I guess today Yamina Hakem is French, and soon American perhaps. I think she just got a green card recently. And we're going to talk about pharmaceutical competitive intelligence. This is LARVOL Friends, our weekly discussion with a friend of our company. LARVOL is a SaaS company. We provide software, especially data-heavy software, to the pharmaceutical industry. We like to work with customers in competitive intelligence, also in medical affairs and in marketing. Today, we're going to talk especially about competitive intelligence because that's Yamina's expertise, in addition to also being French and kind of American. Another common point with me is that she's an entrepreneur. She came to the US, and I actually met her as she was starting her company. So I cannot wait to discuss her journey as an entrepreneur, and we also talk about her journey as an athlete. And then we'll talk about what she sees as the pharmaceutical CI trend for 2023. Yamina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you and bonjour, Bruno. A pleasure to be with you today and having me on this LARVOL Friends podcast.
Well, it's wonderful to have you, Yamina. How long ago did we meet?
It was 7 years ago.
7 years
I arrived
ago.
in San Francisco in January 2016. It's my seventh year.
And we met, and you were essentially started. You didn't have an office, you didn't have colleagues, you were starting your company. And I've been so impressed at how you decided, after a long career with much, much bigger companies in France, to decide to do a new start, and not only to start a company, which is hard enough, but at the same time to immigrate to the US. So before we talk about PharmaCI, I'd like you to describe for us your journey as an immigrant and as an entrepreneur. And I think it will inspire a lot of our listeners who, maybe in 2023 are also considering big shifts in their life. And I think your example might inspire them. So tell us about how you decided to both immigrate and become an entrepreneur.
Yes. So, and if my story can inspire some other women to become entrepreneurs and to lead their life the way they want it, I will have done a good job. So, really, I mean, I'm French and have always worked within the big organization. I was at Thomson Reuters for 20 years, so had a really great career there. To realize at some point that the bigger the structure, the smaller the impact that you can have. And what I was aiming to do, and it is very much to have a greater impact, not just on the business, but also onto the science. I've always been in the scientific field. And so I decided then to leave Thomson Reuters and create global reach, because I wanted to build something of my own and have, as I was saying, a greater impact. So the thing is, when you are in France or in Europe, the other side of the ocean is extremely attractive. And this is where I believe you've got a lot of research, scientific research. You have a lot of innovation, a lot of forward thinking. And the way that the business is done here was more appealing to me. So on that basis, I decided to come to the US and thinking, okay, I've got to get this done. And if I succeed, great. If I fail, I can come back and do something else, but at least I've got to try it. And to finish on that, do you know what, Bruno, is that my only regret is not doing it earlier, before that. I waited 20 years to do it. And if there's one recommendation, is to basically do it sooner than what
I'd
I've
like to say something about this because it's a very important point. Um, we all have biases and prejudice sometimes. One of my bias, for example, is that if you spend 10 years in a big corporate environment, it becomes very hard to have
done.
the spirit of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And this is wrong. This is a prejudice. You're a wonderful, wonderful example about how, even after 20 years, you still have that energy, that enthusiasm, that sense of possibilities needed to be an entrepreneur. So we have these mental shortcuts that we use, and we really have to question them because you're a wonderful example that it doesn't matter how long you spent in a
Yeah.
large organization, and it doesn't matter where you are in your stage of your career, really. There's always possibilities. And sometimes I used to have an executive coach who will tell me what limits us is the stories that we tell ourselves in our mind.
Yes.
That's what limits us. And you're an athlete, we talk about that probably in a moment. You know that mental limitations are self imposed. So, to anybody listening, if you think, oh, I'm too old, oh, I spent too long in a big company, these are the kind of stories that are limiting you. And you can just change the narrative. You can absolutely decide what you want to do. There is always time. You can always decide because you're free. And you're a wonderful example of that, Yamina.
Yeah, and anybody listening and who would like to go into more details about this, I'm really happy to. Please do send me an email. We can discuss, spend half an hour and discuss your situation, and I can definitely support. If that's my biggest regret, so please, I hope that you can do it earlier than me, and if there's anything that I can do to help, I will be happy to help.
So I touched on something a little bit earlier. I said you were also an athlete, um, and being an entrepreneur, being a businesswoman, being a business person, is like being an athlete. We have to aim at being the best in the world at something, in some category. Now, it doesn't mean every day we're going to have a personal record, and it doesn't even mean that we're going to be number one. But we have to try to be number one at something. This is why the discipline and the energy and the kind of drive that athletes build at any time of their life, by the way, early or any time you're an athlete and you're a Spartan athlete, and you can tell us a few things about it. That's a wonderful image and model for starting a business. So tell us about how you started also in that athletic journey and what you learned from it.
Yeah. So before I do that, I'm going to take one word that you have said, is that you have to aim. And really, the reason why I'm saying that is you have to have an objective. And this winter, I've learned a great saying, which is, there is no favorable. I've learned it in French, so I'm translating it. There's no favorable wind for somebody who doesn't know where his port is. So basically, if you have to know where you are going, what is your objective, where you are aiming at, to actually be having that right trajectory, and then build the actions to actually make it happen. So yes, and you have to believe that you're going to reach that objective, and certainly for anybody who is close to me, they will know that I'm always very positive, and there's always this can-do attitude, and nothing is stopping you. And you have to, you have to do it one run or manage your business one step after the other. And even yesterday, I did the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, the half marathon, and obviously you get tired. Obviously you get when it goes up a hill, it's more difficult. But what you have to keep on saying to yourself, and what keeps me driving and going, is very much, okay, one step at a time. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, and then you realize that you've run 21K. So it's never an easy road. And as we know that there's no elevator to success, and every step has a good impact. Sometimes it has a negative impact. But really what I think is paramount in being an entrepreneur and being an athlete is thoroughly enjoying what you do. When I come to the office, I mean, sometimes I don't have the feeling that I'm working, because I really like what I'm doing. And it helps you. Loving and being passionate about what you do makes the bad times more bearable, if you see what I mean. So there is a parallel, definitely, being an entrepreneur and being an athlete, is that you have to know where you are going, what you are doing, repeat every day those steps or those actions that are going to enable you to be successful, and really believe that you are successful, and never let doubt enter your mind. And there's going to be many people, especially when you are building a business, who are going to be criticizing you, or who are going to say, oh, but you will never be able to do it. And there are so many people who are, more than there are people who are going to be supporting you. So you have to be strong, and you have to be purposeful, to know where you're going, what you're doing, and make it happen. And then you look back, and it's like 5 years down the line, and oh my God, I've got employees, I've got people, and I've got people who want my time, and I've got fantastic customers and people who want to talk to me. And that's amazing. But you're building it slowly but surely without realizing it. And then it's, as I was saying, 5-7 years down the line, and you're done. And then same for running. It's one step at a time. You've done 1 mile, and then you've done 13 miles. So this is how it is. And you really have to believe in yourself.
The other thing that you've done in building your business is building a team, because to continue the analogy, the sports of business is a team sport.
Totally.
And your job as a leader is to make other people successful in your team. So it's something that I know you're taking great pride in, together with the fact that both for my business and yours, by the way, I think you don't have any investors either. So there are two sides to it. On one hand, we have less resources. We're always limited by resources. On the other hand, we have a wonderful freedom in making the decisions we're making, and we also have the ability to look at the long term. You don't have an investor who is saying, well, you need to build a company very quickly to sell it.
Yeah.
or to do an IPO, or so that freedom, the fact that you are your own investor,
Mm,
is a source of great freedom as well. And I'm certainly very grateful for that aspect myself.
totally. Totally. Totally.
Uh, so, what does your company do?
Okay. So what do we do? Good question. So what we do is that we help the pharmaceutical industry develop better patient treatments, and for them to develop and put on the market those amazing drugs to help us against cancer, to help us against any disease, is they need to understand what is currently happening, how the current drugs are working on the patients, how they can improve that in different ways in terms of how you take it, how you so different how can you improve the patient treatment. And that's what we help them do, and we provide for them secondary intelligence. So that's information that is available from the publications, or what we do is we also talk to KOLs, so doctors who are currently using seeing patients to get a more immediate feedback. So we collect this information, we analyze it, and we send it to our clients so that they can improve internally on their own development.
So my mom just texted me, as she usually does during the show, and said, I finally understand what type of business my son is in. So thanks for explaining to her what competitive intelligence is. Very appreciated. And Maman Larvol says thank you to you.
Bonjour, Madame Larvol.
Now, since we're on a roll, and for my mother, or maybe for other listeners, elaborate on the difference between primary competitive intelligence and secondary competitive intelligence.
Yeah. So secondary, it's going to you can I mean for anybody who does a Google search, they are doing secondary research. So that's basically having access to public information, and that can be Google, that can be any other value like we say value added databases. So that's um, sources that have been already analyzed and put together, indexed. So that's having access to publicly available information. This publicly available information is fantastic to give you some history about a drug, about a disease, about a company. So that's fantastic to collate all the historical data. At the same time, because the drug development is such a risky business, you cannot rely just on that historical data. You've got to have really up to date today's information, and this has not yet been collected, and this is in the hands of the doctors. It's currently happening. So for that, you're going to be doing some primary intelligence where you're going to be contacting them. You're going to be understanding specifically for the question that you have that is important to your business, what is currently happening. So primary is essential is essential if you want to have the latest information. So if you want to have the latest information on, I don't know, like breast cancer today and what has been happening, what are the new drugs on the market, how are they different, you need to have that primary intelligence. And you're going to complete that with some secondary. So you need both, and you need both. And the big difference that we have compared to some other partners that do exactly the same thing is that, I mean, having over 20 years of experience in doing intelligence within the pharmaceutical industry, definitely what we have developed is the right methodology, because your methodology also needs to be very focused and very robust. Otherwise, using secondary intel, you're going to be inundated with information. It's going to be scary. You're going to have too much. You don't know where to start. So basically, what we have and what we have implemented is a very robust and focused methodology so that we bring to our client only the relevant information. So that's one key differentiator. The second one that is very important, and that's because I am located here, like you, Bruno, in San Francisco, is that what is amazing here is the level of tech and and what my thinking has been when I came here is very much, okay, how can I use tech to facilitate the CI job? And because it can be tedious, it can be difficult. So that's where I then took some classes, AI classes at Stanford, because I'm lucky to be just 1 hour away driving. And that was before COVID. So I took a few classes on AI at Stanford and really learned about it. Obviously, I can't code myself, but certainly I understand better the whole concept about it, what it can do, and how it can support our function. So my job has been also how AI can support CI. That has been big with me over the last 2 to 3 years.
Mhm. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to ask you about ChatGPT in a moment.
Mm.
Of course, so this idea that as an entrepreneur, you need to learn, and as a leader of a startup, you need to be the person who's the most eager to always learn something new. And I think you're proving that in the way you're building your company and being successful and accumulating a number of customers and building a team over the years. Is your team, how much of your team is local here in San Francisco versus outside? From the name Global Reach, do you have also a team outside of the US or outside of the Bay Area?
Yeah, so I've got 3 people in around the Bay Area, one in Texas, one in the East Coast, and then a few in Europe, and then on to India. And that's something that is brand new to me because I didn't know the Indian market before. I worked mostly with staff in Europe and in the US, but learning quickly that it's also important to expand to other areas.
I was telling my son, who's starting to look at college, that the most important thing about going to school or actually I gave that example. The reason why going to Harvard is so valuable is that when you go to Harvard, let's say, you're no longer intimidated by people who went to Harvard. And I think that's the most important point. If you're not intimidated by challenges, by other people, by what they think, by it's really liberating. And as an entrepreneur, I think what you're showing is that you're not intimidated. You're not intimidated by AI. You're not intimidated by ChatGPT. You don't even need to understand how it works.
Mais
You
non,
just you understand the input, the output, and you understand how to hire someone who can get that black box to work, and that's enough.
exactly, exactly, exactly. I know where I'm starting from. What is my problem? I know where I want to go. That's my solution. Well, I just need to have somebody who is going to be an engineer who is going to help me build the black box in the middle. And those guys I've learned are just utterly amazing. And for sure, it's very impressive. And my feedback on this journey, to be honest with you, Bruno, is that it's amazing how, again, it's not a linear progression, is that you solve a problem and then there's a bug and then you solve it and there's another one coming up, and it's like, um, how do you say it in English, en dents de scie. It's not linear, it's there's ups and downs anyway, but that's a very 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 interesting field to enter
Um,
for anybody, because I mean, there's you can't just rely on the we used to do it this way, this is our old ways of doing things. You're dead. You have to move with your environment. You have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able, if you can't create the future, adapt to it quickly. So I hope I am creating and being part of the future directions, but certainly I'm adapting to my environment very very quickly. That's my aim, minimum.
for sure. Shahir Sheikh, our producer, who every week organizes these wonderful conversation, is giving me a hint that it's time to think about the takeaway for today. And so, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to ask you to think about, for our audience, especially the ones who are working in healthcare or in the pharmaceutical industry, or even more specifically in the pharmaceutical competitive intelligence field. What would be the one sentence that you would want them to remember from today? And it could be around your journey, or it could be about predictions about our field and technology. What would be your takeaway for this broadcast today?
So if I'm talking to people who are in pharma competitive intelligence, I'm going to say you are in a fantastic function, because you are really gaining some insights about the future of the science of a disease well ahead of people, and you are helping shape the future of patient treatments. And that's such an amazing and noble, humble function, to basically be able to 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 help all those patients, all those different diseases, and make sure that they are being cured and they are still part of a family. And I'm going to say the reason why I'm saying that is because my mom passed away of diabetes, and I just wish I could have helped. And that's my way of helping patients.
Yamina, thank you very much for joining and sharing today your journey. I'm sure you inspired a lot of people, and we hope to have you again soon on LARVOL Friends. Au revoir.
Au revoir, Bruno. Thank you, everybody. Bye.